Good evening. This meeting is called to order. This is a special meeting of council in support of the appeal of Ryan's Park site plan approval. A special hearing was held on July 29th, 2024. Three appellants spoke to issues on stormwater, sewer, and traffic. Council tabled the decision pending further information from staff on traffic, stormwater, and sewer capacity. The reports have been provided to council and to the appellants. Council will move the agenda. We will make the motion to take from table, and the three appellants will have 5 minutes each to speak. CAO Lawrence will provide timing. The motion to uphold the development officer's approval will then be put to council for debate. And the chair notes that we have quorum. There's one item on the agenda, the Ryan's Park site plan approval appeal, and I would accept a motion to accept this proposed agenda. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Huntley, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. A special hearing was held on July 29, 2024. Three appellants spoke to issues on stormwater, sewer, and traffic. Council tabled the motion, which was moved and seconded pending further information from staff on traffic, sewer, and stormwater. And the motion is to take from table the motion to uphold the development officer's decision to grant site plan approval. Someone could move that, please. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Huntley. This motion is not debatable. The question is to take from the table the motion to uphold the development officer's decision to grant the site plan approval. All those, jump, if you can. Cooking with gas, baby. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. I'm sure I pressed 1. All right, now our appellants may speak, and you will each have 3 minutes. And the mic is on? Oh, sorry, 5 minutes. I'm used to 3 minutes.
Hello, everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks so much for listening to me again. I know you guys have a busy schedule ahead of you, so thanks.
Please repeat your name for the record.
It's Aryan.
Thank you.
Name's Aryan. And I actually, am I allowed to ask a question to the lead engineer just to clarify a couple things?
Planning director, is that?
Mr. Bell? So I'm just wondering, I was sent the traffic studies, and I'm wondering at one point, so it was done specifically between I want to say Park Street and Glenview was the area specified in the study I was sent. And that area was currently at 40% of capacity, depending on time of day. I think it was within, specifically within a certain time range within the evening. And I'm just curious as to what the capacity was pre-build. Like that was, I'm assuming now or pre-build, I'm not sure. It's now. So it's 40% now, not 3 years ago. Okay, thanks. And I'm just curious as to why that area was chosen instead of perhaps also other areas like the entry-exit point where the daycare is located, where Academy Street leads into, where people ignore the stop sign, speed, and just run that stop sign. So that's going to be like a bulk of a substantial amount of inflows, right? That's School Street. Okay, so that's just one question. And just during the last meeting, I noticed once the proposal was brought forward, the amendment, I saw puzzled looks on some of the councilors' faces when the amendment was brought forward, and perhaps they're familiar with the neighborhood and what it can actually sustain. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is the tallest build in Annapolis Valley that's about to take place. 9 stories, is that the tallest? Is it? Just questioning that. So a little bit about myself, and I'll get to my point. I work at Valley Regional Hospital. I'm a respiratory therapist. I do critical care. I resuscitate people. I've worked there for 13 years, so dealing with life and death situations every day by the thousands at this point in Kentville. And over the last 3 years, I'll get to my point. I wish I could wear a GoPro to show you kind of what's going on in there. And I'll just give you a walkthrough of my general evening shift. It goes a little something maybe like this. So maybe called for someone in distress, intubate them, put them on life support. Then I'm called to a delivery where I need to perhaps resuscitate a baby. I deal with all age ranges, maybe put them on life support. Okay, now we need you. We've got a code blue in emerge. Cardiac arrest. Okay, now we've got a 2-vehicle collision coming in. Dead on scene, resuscitate anyways. Wham, wham, gong show, every shift. People in hallways. The infrastructure can't hold it. We don't have the resources to hold it like we did 3 years ago. It's not the same at all. Sometimes I work in Yarmouth. It's like it used to be here. The inflows of population, HRM alone, 5% in 2021, compounded. I think 30,000 immigrants.
1 minute left.
Sorry?
1 minute.
Okay, thanks. I understand there's a quota. My point there is just because something looks good on paper doesn't mean it works. Lastly, I just want to say Ryan's Park was originally slated as a pocket community, an inclusive pocket community, and it's turned into a developer's cash grab. It's cheaper to build up than horizontally, one roof, one foundation, and we need to look at the ripple effects within the neighborhood, the community. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There was a checklist that I was sent as well. One last thing, please. There was a checklist that I was sent as well, and checked off was things will look aesthetically pleasing. There will be no noise pollution. And I don't know what planet you're living on if you live in the neighborhood. There's going to be a lot of noise. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb.
Time's up.
Doesn't represent the town. It doesn't represent the town's best interests or the neighborhood's best interests.
Thank you.
I'm Julie McCaddy, the other applicant. I don't know if the third one arrived.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm standing here to speak to the current proposed site plan, but also to the previous site plan because I didn't appeal it before. And I fully regret that now because I didn't ask the questions in 2019 that I should have asked that have resulted that we're here now looking at a revised site plan when the whole community's completely changed and we weren't even advised of it to begin with. All the changes, including the removal of green space that we know is crucial to drainage, there isn't any there now. There's supposed to be a park, and there's no way to sit there and enjoy or bring kids there or do anything like that. So I'm really questioning accountability. So at the end of the day, the developer made changes that nobody knew about. We never received appeal about it. There seems to be no record that anything was noted about the added units, the lack of the second entrance, which I realize for fire code they do not need, but it was part of the original plan. and the removal of the green space for parking. So we may as well talk about traffic. Yes, this traffic study happened and ended September 4th. So a lot of you in the room probably know what happened September 7th, which was school started. We have 4 school buses that go by every morning, times 2, times twice a day. That's 16 bus runs, carrying a whole lot of kids that's not included in this traffic study right now. It's also our low time, so I own Little Pumpkins. And we run at 50% capacity often in the summer because people are on vacation and they just don't come. So there's a lot of traffic that's missing out of that study. I'm a little surprised by it too, even for Glendale and Park Street. It's a very busy corner, but not nearly as busy as Academy and School Street is, which, like Ari mentioned, people blow through that stop sign all the time. It's very frustrating. I go down that multiple times a day. I don't know how many times I've almost been hit by a car, either walking or in my own vehicle. I'm just trying to pick some of my notes out here. I'd like to see some things change and come out of this. So, for example, the green space needs to stay. You've removed an entire soccer field out of that community, and now there's not even a park they can go sit at. My other concerns are around the traffic because 200 units is going to produce about 200 cars, about 440 people when there's 2.2 people per unit, which does increase the noise. Whether you want to say it does or not, that's a whole lot of people in a very small space. So I would like to speak to not making any approvals until we have our active planning and stormwater plans in place, because that is a serious effect here. I mean, we did a stormwater prediction and sewer prediction and traffic prediction, and that's something that's currently in the works right now. And to make a decision before is putting the cart before the horse. I think that's everything I have. Thank you very much,
All
everybody.
right, thank you. Is the third appellant here? Is the third appellant planning to speak?
Hi, I'm Ashley Robinson and my husband Brian Robinson. We live at 74 School Street. When we purchased our home back in 2021, we were told that the development was for disabled families, things like that. Obviously, that could have been a lie. We do have some concerns because we've been informed over the years. We don't really know much about I guess, the sewage and stuff. Unfortunately, every time the river behind our house floods, we're the ones that lose our driveway. And, sorry, we were informed that all the piping goes from the back of our house all the way down to the front. So I have a lot of concern about that because I don't want my yard to be ripped up if it's not compatible with the development that's going in, with all the work that we've done into our property. And I will agree about the green space, like there's not a lot of green space. I know my daughter, she recently got her license and her friends come to the house and they have people coming out of the new development and almost hitting people, like hitting them as they're turning because they're not stopping. What else? Like, it's just, we have a lot of those concerns. Great, we understand that there's a lot of development that needs to be done everywhere. Again, with the cost of everything. Obviously, we're worried that those buildings going in, their rentals, we're worried about the cost of our housing go down. So if I turn around to sell my house, then am I gonna get anything out of it that I put into it? Who knows? So that's a little bit on the frustrating side. There's also, like, I know that there was one gentleman here the last time we had this meeting and he said horizontal rather than the vertical would be perfect because then you're not losing the valley views and everything like that, because that was, again, another selling point for us to buy our house because it was such a beautiful view. Do you have anything else?
No, you won't see nothing once they're right in front of our house.
Yeah, you wouldn't see anything. So I know that that's aesthetics, I get that, but looking at the valley, like when we decided to move to the valley, we wanted to be away from the city, away from the skyscrapers. And even the one in Wolfville is such a eyesore when you're driving down the highway, and then now you're gonna have 2 9-foot buildings in front of our homes. That's just gonna devalue our property and the valley, and people aren't gonna wanna come here, so. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So our three appellants have had their opportunity to speak, and we now will put the motion back on the floor and have discussion or debate with council. So an appeal was made to the proposed site plan approval at the Ryans Park site located on School Street for 2 multi-story buildings. The development officer, Raleigh King from C&D Community Designs, presented the approved site plan proposal to council and the recommendation to uphold the approval. The appeal presented concerns from 3 citizens, including traffic congestion, stormwater management, and sewer capacity. A traffic study was commissioned by the developer and provided to council and the appellants for review. The stormwater and sewer report was provided by Town of Kentville engineering staff and is included. So the recommendation is the development officer's recommendation to uphold the approved site plan stands and is supported by the reports on traffic, stormwater, sewer, and water management. Traffic study presents that volumes are moderate. Based on the analysis, no infrastructure improvements have been identified. The sanitary sewer is capable of handling this development without negatively impacting the services. The storm sewer, as designed, will ensure that runoff is less than or equal to what previously left the site. There is ample water for both fire protection and domestic water service at the site. So the motion is that council uphold the development officer's decision to grant the site plan approval. Someone could move that, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council uphold the development officer's decision to grant the site plan approval. The floor is now open for discussion. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. All of our new builds and so on have to have a green space attached. Will there be a green space? Will this developer make sure that they have a green space like all other subdivisions do? That's one question.
Thank you for the question. Just off the top, in the interest of transparency, I would note that when I was with Brightwood Community Planning, I did represent Encore Developments in the past. However, for this application, I've had no role in the determination of the direction of the development officer. That was a decision made by them primarily before I began with the town. My role has been to organize the meetings mostly and make sure the appellants had the information, the council had the information that was required. So I just thought I'd put that out there first.
Thank you.
With regards to the actual application, there was an inclusion of a landscape concept plan, which would be in council's report and has been made available for the appellants as well. And as part of the site plan approval process, they would be required to maintain this design going forward.
Okay. So there is no like designated park space like we ask for other developments through recreation, that something would go there?
Again, there's an existing site plan approval. This is an amendment to the original. Mm-hmm. So we'd have to go back and have a look at that to determine how that was drawn out. But there is some inclusion of green space within the current landscape plan, and we can certainly work, should this go forward, and make sure that comes through.
Okay. Another question is that these apartments that are 9 stories will sit below the street grade. Is that correct? Like they sit down They don't start right up level with the street grade, is that correct?
I don't know. I'm not able to speak to the elevations of the site. I'm not sure.
The old ball diamond.
Yeah, it's below the other houses that are there.
Yep.
It sits below, right? Okay. So we always had apartments in the original site plan that were going to be there. That's not a change. It's just the number of units that are changed. Is that correct?
The number of buildings has
The number of
changed from
buildings
3
has
to 2.
changed.
And the number of units has increased as well.
Okay. And, okay. The traffic, I know at the old KCA that used to sit on that site, probably would have been quite extensive at the time with staff parking and student, high school student parking and bus traffic and so on. So the study that was done, would it have fallen in line with the amount of traffic that was there at the time?
Turn that one over to Dave Bell.
Okay.
Good evening, council. The traffic study, even though the report was dated September 11th, I'm trying to look through the report now to see when they did their traffic counts, but it was, I believe, late August when the traffic, that was a question, I believe, from one of the appellants. Traffic counts were done this summer, so yes, school buses were not running at the time. That report had to be done, and the analysis is what was required to see if a traffic study was required at all. It's when there's more than 100 trips per hour during peak hours through policy T8 and T9. If the analysis from a certain size development through the software that they would use to look at the increase in trips per hour, two-way trips per hour, exceeds 100, then a full-fledged traffic impact study is required. This wasn't the case. Their analysis based on the size and scope of this development would generate less than 30 vehicles per hour or about one vehicle every 2 minutes during peak hours. So at that point, they could have just stopped it entirely, but they decided to do what's called a traffic impact statement, which is the short 5 or 6 page report that they did do. That was over and above what was required. So that statement looked at, at the intersections nearby, the variety of intersections in multiple ways in and out of Glenview and School Street, whether it be Academy or Park Street or School Street down to Main Street, and determined that no infrastructure improvements were required to accommodate the development. But I don't know if that's in your question, Councillor, but it was...
I was just, I went to school at KCA.
Sure.
So
They
I
didn't-
know that there was a lot of traffic funneling through there at like 3:30 in the afternoon, and at noontime. We don't have any old traffic studies to tell us how many cars were going through there
No,
and
they-
buses, but
they looked
I
at current
suspect it was
conditions.
quite high.
They looked at current conditions only at those
Okay.
impacted intersections and what the increased load would be. They didn't consider what was, what were the volumes back when it was an active school,
Yeah.
as it was phased, down from P to 12 down to, P to
Yeah.
7 or P to 9, I guess, and ultimately, no school at all and demolished to the site prior to the first phase of the smaller Ryan's Park
Okay. All right.
development.
All right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read a little bit because I made some notes around this so I could touch on a number of points. So first off, I just want to say thanks to the appellants who are here tonight. I appreciate it takes a lot of courage to come out and make these comments. So as we know, the site plan approval was done in June of 2019, and since that time, we've had 18 of the townhouses built. Both lots are within the C1 general commercial zone. The LUB allows multi-unit dwellings in this zone. There's a site plan criteria. This development meets it. The development officer granted the site plan approval. There were concerns around traffic, green space, sewer and stormwater management, and I'll get to those in a moment. The site plan approval process is set out in Section 232 of the MGA, and does not require a hearing or a public meeting, only the notification of neighboring properties with opportunities to appeal. When I look at page 4 of 5 of the traffic study, it talks about the manual traffic count was performed at the intersection of Park and Glenview. Was done weekday PM peak hours, and then it talks about the modeling of the volumes around the traffic simulation software. It talked about that intersection operates at a 40% capacity. There's a section in there around trip distribution, and it talks about the various ways in which people can come into that. The very last paragraph of the traffic study talks about volumes on Main Street are moderate, indicating that any movements to or from the development along Main Street will have minimal impact on existing traffic operations. Based on this analysis, no infrastructure improvements have been identified as required to accommodate this development. It talks about generating over 60 new two-way trips during the peak hours of traffic, and then I've just already talked about the volume. The sanitary sewer was replaced in 2008 with a 10-inch PVC pipe and is capable of handling this development at full build-out. With regards to the storm sewer, the original plans were submitted, including a stormwater management plan that adheres to the provincial mandate for net zero stormwater. And then it talks a little bit about downstream system. The section of the request for proposal that went out for the stormwater management master plan, there's a piece in there that it talks about that this project should provide updated recommendations based on current conditions, including strategies to enhance resilience against increasingly frequent and severe weather events. It talks about strategic planning for sustainable development and resilience is crucial. And so it talks about, involves specifying locations for stormwater management improvements, including potential sites for new infrastructure or upgrades existing systems. So when we talk about the master plan, it's primarily going to focus on the existing infrastructure that we have. In my opinion, this checks all the boxes. It checks every single box, which is why the development officer would have approved it and then sent it through to us, because there were appellants that wanted to make their comments around it. We need this tax base. We need the density. There's 9 acres of land here. The developer is going to be building concrete prefab, which makes sense. It's more efficient and it's quicker to build, which makes more sense because we're in a housing crisis. The only thing that really will bring down any rents is the supplies that you use to create the building. My understanding is the height at 9 stories is the height that the fire trucks can actually reach for a ladder reach. We get density with this height, and I understand that the townhouses that are there now were initially for folks that have differences, but I also note and end with this that we actually can't zone for people, and that I think it's the responsibility of us to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further? Councillor York. Councillor Maxwell, I see you, but.
Thank you. I used to live in this neighborhood. I used to live on the top of Academy Street. And I appreciate that this change in the neighborhood makeup and the neighborhood design is a big change, and it's a difficult one. Change is never easy. And I don't know how this will impact necessarily the little neighborhood. The documents that we've received all state that it won't have too negative an impact. There will be change, and that's something that we know for sure. It is also something to the Deputy Mayor's point. Everything that has been recommended to us has been recommended because it meets all of the criteria, and it meets all of the requirements that we have in place. So whether I like it or not isn't as important as whether it meets the criteria and the development criteria set forth by the town. So I'm keeping that in mind as we make or have our conversations this evening. But it is difficult with change to a neighborhood that has been established for a while. That's going to be the case in the town of Kentville, where we have established neighborhoods. Change is difficult. And with change also comes the change of our communities as well. So the needs in our community have increased, the housing needs have been increased, and we need to find ways to move forward with that while still trying to maintain, or to ensure rather that we're following our own policies and guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Question for Dave. The sewer line on School Street was replaced to a 10-inch. What's the flow volume on Main Street? I assume it goes School Street, Main, out to New Minas.
School to Main, easterly to the Bridge Street corner, and north to pumping station, and then to the pumping station force line to New Minas. That line, that storm or sanitary line, is original but oversized because back then everything went to the river. So the downtown sanitary sewer line is only at a fraction of its capacity. Very much a lot of storage in that line because back in the precepts prior to '77 when the plant was built, that carried wastewater and stormwater. When we started pumping wastewater to New Minas in '77, that's when the storm sewer along the downtown sort of one-way loop went in. So that very large sanitary only sewer has a lot of capacity.
What size is it, and is sewer the same as water where it's like cubic feet per second, or?
You think of CFS mostly with storm lines, which are always typically larger than sanitary sewer lines, but that old line that sort of runs around we'll say the square on all those streets, Main, Aberdeen, Webster, and then ultimately north on Bridge to our G5, is no less than 18-inch clay or concrete, is combination depending on the decade of install. But like when there's an issue with the lift station or the county's repairing the force main that they had so much trouble with last year, we could turn that pumping station off and have storage for hours while they waited pumper trucks to come keep that, because it can just continue to sort of circle around the square in a sense,
Okay.
but very high capacity because of the original use of a combined sewer and now strictly sanitary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. If I may, to Director Shoup, just wondering do we have any mechanisms in place, I guess, to guarantee that there's going to be green space? And if we know the timeline of this project, I know when it was sold in 2019, there were timelines put in place for the townhouses, but is there anything in that language, or is it just kind of open-ended?
We have defined criteria for all of our green spaces.
I know that, but I mean, it's been 5 years now and there is none, so how do we know, like, what's our mechanism for that? Just so that people are assured.
So at this stage, we're just looking at the MPS LUB amendment, right?
Can you please introduce yourself?
Sorry, I'm Derek Robertson. I'm one of the principal planners at C&D Community Design. I've been working with Caroline on this project a little bit back and forth. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it tonight, so I'm briefed on everything. So at this stage, you're just looking at your MPS LUB amendment. So you're not really talking site.
Just one thought. You're jumping ahead to the next application, I believe, for the Bryson.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
this is Ryan's Park.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know more about Ryan's Park. Yeah, so sorry, everyone.
That's okay.
Yeah, the green space, amenity space, that's in your site plan approval criteria. It's right in there. So you can see it's in the site plan. It shows the amenity space. You see the green space around the building counts towards amenity space as per the land use bylaw policy that anything that's usable for recreation. So, aside from like small plant and steep slopes, that counts towards it. And as part of the site plan approval criteria, it's necessary for the occupancy permit. So, if it was ever reduced to below what was approved, you would have a non-conforming use in the future.
Okay, and sorry, with this amendment, there's no timeline in place, or how?
They would have a limit to start construction on their development permit once, but it wouldn't be, it would just be the standard thing, and
Right.
they could, in theory, extend it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. When I listen to some of the issues that are brought up, I'll work around, first of all, traffic. And it makes sense that there is a concern. In every part of our community that we live, we have traffic and we have people speeding, and those things we can't seem to control. So I'm not going to speak to that because I don't know how we would control that. In saying traffic, though, yes, I can see there would be an increase in traffic because it's going to be busy. My first question that comes from that is, when do we see this project being started, and how long will it take to be finished? That's my first question. If it takes 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is there a way to work with some sort of traffic design? And I keep thinking of one of the appellants. I know they have a daycare up there. Is there a way to have some sort of crosswalk measures for them? Whether it's right in front of their building and there's a path that shows, how to get to a certain green space where they can play. If we're thinking about, when we're planning like this, we're thinking about the future, and they are our future. So I think, thinking about them kind of has to be in play here. But in coming back to everything with all the check marks, we seem to have met all those. Traffic is in my mind. That's my biggest thing, and time frame. I would like to know, like how long it would take this build. Right now, that's what I see, my two things.
I will remind council, as our solicitor reminded us the last time we were here, is that what we are looking at is what is approved in a site plan. Those are the only criteria that we should be looking at today is the criteria that are controlled by the site plan approval process. So that's just a reminder. Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, I'm just looking at the layout by C&D Design here, and there's a back piece there that it's probably on an elevation a bit, and there's nothing planned for there right now. So if the developer was going to utilize that space, they would have to do another site plan, is that correct?
I would leave that to our planning department to respond to.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And actually, that's factored into that amenity space. So it would require some careful thought at that point to do anything additional.
That was my question, is if that could be utilized for green space and amenity space. So, yeah, okay. And that could go in a site plan, correct?
Yeah, it is included in this site plan approval already as amenity space.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a couple of other comments. My first set of comments are very to the point and procedural, and that was the intent of them. But at the same time, it's important to note, to Councillor York's point, that it is a neighborhood that is established. There are young children there, and it's really, really important to realize that there is a spirit in that neighborhood that people want to maintain that, and I understand that. We have a land use bylaw and we have a municipal planning strategy. Our municipal planning strategy is essentially what we want to see, what we aspire to be in the town of Kemptville, and then we put it into place with our land use bylaws. We know as a council, and presumably the next council that is in place, will look to make some amendments. One of those things is we don't have height restrictions at this juncture. Hopefully, something will be brought into place after, it's hard to say. When C&D spoke before about our site plan approval, Caroline talked about how robust it is, and it really is robust. When I look at from A to I, A to K, A to L, anyway, it's very, very, very robust. So it talks about, green space, and it talks about the height of walls, and it talks about existing vegetation, location of pedestrian walkways, location of outdoor lighting, facilities for storage of solid waste, and everything that you look at, it meets all these check marks. So it makes sense based on our LUB and our MPS at this juncture. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further from members of council? Well, I'm going to put one stat on. Councillor Gerard, go ahead.
Sorry, just one last thing. Since Councillor Zabian asked about timelines, so this development is currently in a timeline process, correct?
No. The timeline in the original contract was only for the first first buildings.
Okay.
These buildings, we knew that they were going to be put in there, but they were not part of that original, 15% in the first, No, they were not part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Zabian, just give me a sec, go now. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'm not anti-development, it has to be right, and do we have any mechanism that we can impose a timeline? Is there anything that exists in our language that we can have more information around that piece? I think that's important, and it would probably help people, and it would help me as well tonight.
I'm going to remind you again that timeline is not part of site plan approval, so therefore it is not part of this appeal process.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll put this stat on the table. You're probably going to hear it at least 3 times tonight, but our housing report has identified that Kentville needs 385 new units by 2027. That's 2 years from now. And since 2016, we have built 426 units. 205 of those were built in 2021 with the Miners Landing. So the importance of development cannot be overstated, and these are all numbers that have not come from within the town of Kentville research, but external research as well. One of the other things that was asked when we did our public hearing last week, someone asked if we had any of the Valley Rand statistics with regards to what the requirements were. And I just want to say that the Valley Rand did complete a workforce strategy paper in 2021. It is available publicly on their website. All you have to do is go to the Valley Rand website and pull up workforce strategy. It's a very easy read, and what it talks about is what we need in the next 10 years. So right now, they are saying through study that we are going to grow to more than 36,700 jobs. And that is within the current businesses that are here in our area. And that is an incredible amount. And part of that that you have to think about is retirements, because we are actually going to have 6,570 retirees in that same time period that are hitting that magic age of 65 and going to be coming out of the workforce. So put all of these things together and remember, where Kentville is and the fact that we have land that is ready for residential development. We are one of the only towns in Nova Scotia that has that capacity, and that really cannot be overstated. So anyway, you are going to hear me say those again and again, and probably again. So if there is nothing further, I would call the question. And the question is on adoption of the motion to uphold the development officer's decision to grant site plan approval. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. There being no further business and completion of the agenda, this meeting is adjourned and the time is 17:45. Thank you. We will